sisters wrote and grew up together, but had distinct personalities and styles. Emily Bronte drew on the supernatural and the Gothic for her dark family saga Wuthering Heights. The book has been an inspiration for novelist Helen Oyeyemi ever since she read it as a teenager. But Emily herself remains something of a mystery.
Reading Wuthering Heights for the first time was one of the most intense experiences I've ever had while sitting still. You have no idea who or what on earth Emily Bronte might be. You just have this sense of a wild and singular imagination, this powerful mind. Her characters are so intense and go to such extremes, it seems as if there's nothing that they won't say or do.
One sister, however, was very happy to be at home, Emily. Her brief foray working as a school teacher had ended in illness, possibly a breakdown. Back in Haworth, Emily ran the household for her father. And as well as the normal chores of cooking and cleaning, she had a rather unusual responsibility. The pistol belonged to the sister's father, the Reverend Patrick Bronte, who kept it handy just in case of any trouble from rioting mill workers. It was Emily's job to discharge, clean and reload the weapon.
Emily was the only Bronte sibling that their father instructed in firing of a pistol, and I can see how she would have really loved this. It must have provided a spark, a moment of real excitement in an otherwise relentless day of household tasks from morning till dusk, which is not to say that the routines weren't useful to Emily's imagination as well. I'm here in the kitchen at the parsonage, where Emily would have made many, many loaves of bread, probably treating the dough a lot more roughly than I am at the moment. And I'm thinking about the ritual that she would have gone through of keeping a household running, the sort of storylines and the characters and the dialogue between the characters that would have been playing out in her head at exactly the same time. So this simultaneous magic, in a way. A lot of her drama takes place within the home. Someone can be making bread and somebody else can be plotting murder. In Wuthering Heights, Emily shows us that the domestic sphere can be as volatile and strange and sometimes frightening, at least in its intensity, as it can be out on the moors. I'm going to spend the night at the parsonage and try to access Emily's conception of home. I'm about to go to sleep here, and I'm trying to be calm. The wind has been so strong. It's literally been wuthering around the house, and yeah, walking past the front door, it felt as if somebody was trying to get in, and I'm trying to not think in that way. Our first encounter with the heroine of Wuthering Heights is with Kathy's ghost, a child ghost scratching at the windows of a house, longing to be let in. There's something so shocking about the tangibility of that ghost, and that's something that's influenced the way that I tell stories myself.
The intense horror of
nightmare came over me. I tried to draw back my arm, but the hand clung to it, and a most melancholy voice sobbed, "Let me in. Let me in."
It's about 7 a.m. I had a really strange night. Don't think I really slept. It felt like I was seeing things, but even now if you ask me what I was seeing, I couldn't tell you. I know Emily in particular, as Charlotte writes, was very, very reluctant to leave this life, which might have been part of the reason why I was nervous before, because I thought, well, she might want to stick around the house, even in the next life. And her characters in Wuthering Heights reject heaven. They would rather stay here. One of the most rebellious figures in Wuthering Heights is Heathcliff. He's full of violence and anger, but then there's this great bond and the great love between him and Cathy that really he's helpless before. Top Woodlands is said to be one of the inspirations for Wuthering Heights, the house where Heathcliff lives in the story. So there's something really atmospheric and suitably gothic about meeting a fellow Heathcliff fan in this ruined farmhouse.
I read Wuthering Heights, I must have been 16 or 17, and I was besotted with Heathcliff. And I've never really got over it.
Is Heathcliff a villain or something more interesting?
In the narrative's descriptions of Heathcliff, there's something to suggest that he may not even be human, that he's a fiend, a devil. He operates on a different level to any other character in the novel.
It's his nature, in the way that it's the nature of the moors to destroy you if you're lost out here after dark.
Absolutely. Once we read between the lines, I think we can see Frankenstein. We look at what happens to Frankenstein's creature. He's neglected by his creator, and eventually he takes his revenge on mankind. And Heathcliff does something very similar. He's neglected and abused, and ultimately he exacts his revenge.
I have no pity. I have no pity. The more the worms writhe, the more I yearn to crush out their entrails. It is a moral teething, and I grind with greater energy in proportion to the increase of pain.
But, and I think this is what Emily Bronte does wonderfully, in the midst of all this, he remains the novel's romantic lead. It's so contradictory, but it works so well. And he's just driven by this passion for Catherine and this desire for revenge.
Cathy seems to be the only other character in the novel who understands Heathcliff. There is the declaration she makes where she says, "I am Heathcliff," and they are one character broken into two separate bodies, and they spend the story trying to come back together.
One of the most wonderful things of the book, and culminates in the bodies decomposing together because he's removed the sides of the coffins. So she literally becomes Heathcliff.
By importing exotic Gothic elements into an everyday Yorkshire setting, Emily broke new ground, transforming the familiar into some